The unexpected arrival. The gleaming spires of the Galactic Academy of Sciences pierced the violet sky of Nexus Prime, a testament to the collaborative achievements of a dozen spacefaring species. Nestled in the heart of the Andromeda Galaxy, the Academy stood as the pinnacle of scientific pursuit, a melting pot of the most brilliant minds from across known space. On this particular day, an unusual buzz of excitement and trepidation filled the grand atrium. Professors with appendages of all shapes and sizes gathered, their varied expressions of curiosity, skepticism, and barely concealed disdain evident even across species barriers. The cause of this commotion: the imminent arrival of the Academy's first human student. Dr. Xylith, the Arcturian Dean of Admissions, fidgeted nervously with her tendrils. "I still can't believe we're going through with this," she muttered to her colleague, Professor Zorn, a stocky Volcrin with iridescent scales. Zorn's multifaceted eyes glimmered with amusement. "Come now, Xylith, where's your sense of scientific inquiry? This human could provide fascinating insights into their species, or cause an interstellar incident." Xylith retorted, "You know how fragile and unpredictable they are. And let's not forget, they're from a death world." The death world. Their conversation was cut short by a sudden hush falling over the atrium. The sleek, silver doors of the teleportation chamber hummed to life, bathing the room in a soft blue glow. With a flash of light and a faint pop, a figure materialized on the platform. Zara Chen blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the sudden change in environment. The 22-year-old astrophysics prodigy from Earth stood barely over 5 feet tall, her slight frame dwarfed by the cavernous atrium and its alien occupants. She brushed a strand of jet-black hair from her face, her dark eyes wide with wonder as she took in the scene before her. "Greetings, Zara Chen of Earth," Dr. Xylith said, her voice modulated to a soothing tone by her universal translator. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy of Sciences." Zara stepped forward, her movements careful in the slightly lower gravity. "Thank you, Dr. Xylith. It's an honor to be here." Her voice was steady, betraying none of the nervousness she felt inside. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Many of the assembled aliens had never seen a human in person before. They marveled at her soft, pinkish skin, the odd symmetry of her features, and the graceful bipedal gait as she descended from the platform. Professor Zorn approached, his scales shifting through a kaleidoscope of colors in his excitement. "Fascinating. Tell me, young human, how did you find the teleportation experience? I understand it's not a common mode of transport on your world." Zara laughed, a melodious sound that seemed to surprise the aliens around her. It was intense, like being turned inside out and put back together again in the span of a heartbeat, but exhilarating. Her enthusiasm seemed to break the ice. Soon, Zara found herself surrounded by curious academics, peppered with questions about Earth, human biology, and her field of study. She answered as best she could, her own curiosity evident as she inquired about their species and specialties in return. As the impromptu meet and greet continued, Dr. Xylith observed from a distance, her initial apprehension slowly giving way to cautious optimism. Perhaps this experiment wouldn't be a complete disaster after all. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of introductions and orientations. Zara's head spun with information about the Academy's history, its groundbreaking research programs, and the myriad alien cultures represented in its halls. She marveled at the holographic displays, the gravity-defying architecture, and the casual use of technology that seemed almost magical to her Earth-trained eyes. Finally, as the Academy's twin suns began to set, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of orange and purple, Zara was shown to her quarters. The room was spartanly furnished by human standards, but she gasped in delight at the floor-to-ceiling window offering a panoramic view of the Academy campus and the alien cityscape beyond. As the door slid shut behind her, Zara let out a long breath, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of the day's events. She was light years from home, the first and only human in a sea of alien life forms. The enormity of the opportunity and the responsibility settled on her shoulders. She unpacked her few belongings, smiling as she placed a holo photo of her family on the desk. The familiar faces of her parents and younger brother grounded her, a reminder of why she had embarked on this incredible journey. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts, followed by a holographic message hovering in the air before her. It was her class schedule for the coming week, along with a map of the academy and a list of important contacts. Zara's eyes widened as she scrolled through the course titles: Quantum Gravitational Dynamics in Multiversal Systems, Xenobiology and its Applications in Astrophysics, Advanced Temporal Mechanics. This was it. This was real. She was about to study at the forefront of galactic science, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge further than ever before. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. As she prepared for bed, grateful that the Academy had thought to provide her with a soft, sleeping surface rather than the gelatinous pods favored by some species, Zara's mind raced with the possibilities that lay ahead. What discoveries might she make? What friendships could she forge across the barriers of species and culture? And most importantly, how would her presence here change humanity's place in the galactic community? Little did Zara know that her arrival at the Galactic Academy of Sciences was about to set in motion a chain of events that would challenge perceptions, overturn long-standing scientific theories, and ultimately redefine the relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. As she drifted off to sleep, lulled by the gentle hum of the station's systems, the first human student at the Galactic Academy dreamed of stars, of alien worlds, and of the boundless potential that lay within her grasp. Challenges and discoveries. The first rays of Centauri Prime's triple suns had barely pierced the iridescent dome of the Galactic University when Zara Chen found herself sprinting across the campus. Her first class, Advanced Xenobiology and Comparative Physiology, was set to begin in mere minutes, and she was determined not to be late on her first day. As she burst into the lecture hall, Zara skidded to a halt, her eyes widening at the sight before her. The room was a vast amphitheater, easily able to seat thousands. But what truly took her breath away were the students. Beings of every conceivable shape and size filled the seats, some floating, others perched on specialized apparatus, and a few that seemed to exist as pure energy. "Ah, our terrestrial anomaly has decided to grace us with her presence," a voice boomed from the center of the room. Professor Xylock, a towering insectoid with multifaceted eyes and shimmering exoskeleton, fixed Zara with a piercing gaze. "Perhaps on your world, punctuality is an optional concept." Zara felt her cheeks burn as every eye in the room turned towards her. "I'm sorry, Professor, it won't happen again." "See that it doesn't." Tyler. "Now, find a seat, preferably one that can withstand your dense physiology." Stifling a retort, Zara made her way to an empty seat near the back of the hall. As she sat down, she noticed the beings around her shifting away slightly, as if afraid of contamination. "Today," Professor Xylock continued, his voice reverberating through the hall, "we begin our exploration of the galaxy's most fascinating life forms. We will dissect the intricacies of gas-based intelligences, examine the neural networks of hive minds, and unravel the mysteries of photosynthetic sentience." A holographic display sprang to life in the center of the room, showing a dizzying array of alien anatomies. Zara leaned forward, her earlier embarrassment forgotten in the face of such wonders. "But first," Xylock said, his tone taking on a hint of mischief, "let us examine a most peculiar species, one that, against all odds and perhaps better judgment, has recently joined our galactic community." With a flick of his appendage, the hologram shifted to display a familiar form, a human being. Zara felt her heart sink as snickers and murmurs rippled through the audience. "Homo sapiens," Psylocke announced, "a species so improbably designed that many still debate whether they are truly sentient or simply an elaborate cosmic joke." As the professor began to list the many flaws of human physiology, their fragile bones, their inefficient digestive system, their laughably limited sensory perception. Zara felt a growing knot of anger in her stomach. Perhaps our resident specimen would care to explain how such a species managed to achieve spaceflight without destroying themselves. Thylock's question cut through the laughter, all eyes once again turning to Zara. For a moment, Zara considered remaining silent, shrinking away from the scrutiny. But then she remembered why she was here. She was representing all of humanity. She couldn't back down. Standing up, Zara took a deep breath. With all due respect, Professor, I think you're missing the point. Yes, humans might seem physically inferior compared to many species here. But our strength lies not in our bodies, but in our minds and our spirit. A hush fell over the room as Zara continued, her voice growing stronger. We achieved spaceflight not despite our limitations, but because of them. Every challenge we faced pushed us to innovate, to think creatively, to work together in ways that overcame our individual weaknesses. She gestured to the holographic display. You see fragility. I see adaptability. You see inefficiency. I see versatility. Humans have survived and thrived in every environment our world could throw at us, from scorching deserts to frozen tundras. And now we're here, ready to take on the challenges of the galaxy. As Zora finished, she became aware of the stunned silence that had fallen over the lecture hall. Even Professor Zylock seemed taken aback, his antennae twitching in what might have been surprise. After a long moment, the professor spoke. And, interesting perspective, Ms. Chen, perhaps there is more to your species than meets the eye. Now let us continue with our scheduled curriculum. As Zara sat down, she noticed the beings around her looking at her with newfound curiosity rather than disdain. A small victory, but a significant one. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes, each more mind-bending than the last. Zara struggled to keep up with concepts that seemed to defy the very laws of physics as she understood them. But with each challenge, she felt her mind expanding, grasping new ideas that would have been incomprehensible just days ago. It was during her practical applications of quantum entanglement class that disaster struck. The students were tasked with using a sophisticated quantum manipulator to entangle particles across vast distances. As Zara approached the device, she felt a sudden wave of dizziness. Before she could step back, her hand brushed against the control panel. Alarms blared as the quantum field destabilized, threatening to create a localized space-time anomaly. Panic erupted in the lab. The professor, a beam of pure energy contained within a force field, flickered in distress. "Shut it down," he cried, "before it tears a hole in the fabric of reality." But the other students were frozen in fear, their various appendages trembling or retracting. Zara, fighting through her disorientation, realized she was the only one close enough to do anything. Drawing on half-remembered physics lessons and a good dose of human intuition, Zara's hands flew over the control panel. She rerouted power, adjusted field harmonics, and in a move that would later be described as either brilliant or insane, used her own bioelectric field to stabilize the quantum fluctuations. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft whine, the alarms fell silent. The quantum manipulator powered down, the crisis averted. As Zara stepped back, panting and covered in sweat, she became aware of the stunned silence around her. The professor floated closer, his energy form pulsing with what might have been excitement. "In all my cycles of teaching," he said, his voice crackling with static, "I have never seen such quick thinking and adaptability. Ms. Chen, you have not only saved this laboratory, but potentially the entire campus. Your actions today have demonstrated that there is indeed more to your species than we realized." Word of Zara's feat spread quickly through the university. By the end of the day, she found herself surrounded by curious aliens, all eager to learn more about the human who had averted disaster. As she made her way back to her dormitory, exhausted but exhilarated, Zara was intercepted by a familiar face. Kerxt, the reptilian student she had met on her first day, fell into step beside her. "Heard you caused quite a stir today," Kirk said, his scales shifting to a pattern of impressed blues and greens. "Quantum catastrophe, was it? And here I thought you'd just be struggling to keep up." Zara laughed, the tension of the day finally releasing. "Believe me, I'm as surprised as anyone. I'm not even sure how I did it." Kirk's expression turned serious. "Well, whatever you did, it's got people talking. And not everyone is happy about it. Be careful, Zara. You're starting to shake things up around here. And some folks don't like change." As they reached her door, Zara thanked Kirk for the warning. Entering her room, she found a message waiting for her. It was from Dean Thylos, requesting her presence in his office first thing in the morning. Collapsing onto her bed, Zara stared up at the alien constellations visible through her window. She had come to the Galactic University hoping to learn, to prove that humans belonged among the stars. She never imagined she'd be making waves so soon. As she drifted off to sleep, Zora couldn't help but wonder what other challenges awaited her in this alien world. And more importantly, was she ready to face them? Little did she know, her actions today had set in motion events that would challenge not just her, but the entire galactic order. The human experiment at Galactic University was about to take an unexpected turn, and Zara Chen was at the heart of it all. Challenges and discoveries. The first rays of Centauri Prime's triple suns had barely crested the horizon when Zora's room came alive with a symphony of alien sounds. Chirps, whistles, and low thrums reverberated through the air, gradually increasing in volume until Zara jolted awake, her heart racing. "Good morning, Terran student." A melodious voice chimed from seemingly nowhere. "It is time to prepare for your first day of classes." Zara rubbed her eyes, trying to shake off the disorientation of waking up in an alien environment. "Thanks," she mumbled, wondering if the AI could even understand her sleep-addled speech. As she stumbled out of bed, she caught sight of her reflection in the room's smart surface and couldn't help but laugh. Her black hair stood up in all directions, a stark reminder of her humanity in this sea of alien perfection. After figuring out how to use the sonic shower, an experience that left her feeling clean but somewhat rattled, Zara made her way to the communal dining area. The vast hall was already bustling with activity, filled with students of all shapes, sizes, and states of matter. As Zara approached the food synthesizers, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Kirk, the friendly reptilian she'd met yesterday. "Morning, Earthling," Kirk rumbled good-naturedly. "Ready for your first day in the big leagues?" Zara grinned, grateful for the familiar face. "As ready as I'll ever be. Though I'm not sure I'm up for whatever that is." She gestured towards a student who appeared to be consuming a writhing mass of tentacles. Kirk laughed, a sound like rocks in a tumbler. "Probably best to stick with something close to your native cuisine for now. Here, let me show you how to use the synthesizer." With Kirk's help, Zara managed to produce something resembling oatmeal, though the color was a bit more purple than she was used to. As they sat down to eat, Zora couldn't help but notice the stares and whispers from the other students. "Don't mind them," Kirk said, noticing her discomfort. "Humans are still a novelty out here. Give it time, and they'll get used to you." Zara nodded, trying to project more confidence than she felt. "So, what's our first class?" "Quantum gravitational dynamics in multiversal systems," Kirk replied, his scales shifting to a deep blue. "With Professor Zixel. They say he's brilliant, but his teaching style can be a bit intense." As they made their way to the lecture hall, Zora marveled at the academy's architecture. Corridors seemed to bend and twist in ways that defied Euclidean geometry, and more than once she could have sworn they walked through solid walls. The lecture hall itself was a marvel of alien engineering. Instead of seats, students settled into anti-gravity pods that allowed them to float at various levels, creating a three-dimensional classroom space. Zara clumsily maneuvered into a pod, feeling a moment of vertigo as it lifted her off the ground. Professor Zixel materialized at the center of the room, his form a swirling mass of energy and light. "Welcome, students, to the cutting edge of multiversal theory." His voice resonated directly in Zora's mind. "Today, we will begin to unravel the mysteries of quantum gravity across parallel realities." What followed was the most mind-bending 2 hours of Zora's life. Holographic equations danced through the air, depicting concepts that stretched the limits of her understanding. She furiously scribbled notes, her tablet struggling to keep up with the alien symbols and diagrams. As the lecture progressed, Zora found herself raising her hand more and more frequently. Her human perspective, shaped by Earth's unique scientific history, led her to ask questions that her alien classmates hadn't considered. "Intriguing observation, Terran Zora," Professor Zixel commented after one of her questions. "Your species' limited understanding of quantum mechanics has led you to an unexpectedly insightful query. Perhaps there is value in your alternative viewpoint." By the end of the class, Zora's head was spinning, but she felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly why she had come to the Galactic University, to push the boundaries of her understanding and contribute to the grand tapestry of universal knowledge. As the students filed out of the lecture hall, Zora overheard snippets of conversation. "Did you see how the human kept up? I heard their brains are made of wet organic matter. How does it process multidimensional algorithms? Maybe there's more to these Terrans than we thought." As weeks turned into months, Zora found herself settling into a routine at the Galactic University. The initial novelty of her presence had worn off, replaced by a grudging acceptance from most of her peers. Her unique perspective continued to intrigue her professors, even as it occasionally frustrated them. One crisp morning, as Zora hurried to her advanced xenophysics class, she nearly collided with a hovering mass of tentacles and eyes. "Watch where you're going, Terran," the being hissed, its appendages rippling with indignation. "I'm so sorry," Zora began, but the alien had already floated away, muttering something about clumsy bipeds. Sighing, Zora entered the lecture hall, where Professor Quixall, a crystalline being that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns, was already setting up the day's experiment. "Ah, Zora," Quixall chimed, his voice a melody of tinkling glass. "Just in time. We're about to begin a rather exciting demonstration of trans-dimensional energy transfer." As the class settled in, Quixall activated the complex array of equipment. A shimmering field of energy sprang to life in the center of the room, pulsing with colors Zora had never seen before. "Now, observe closely," the professor instructed. "We'll be attempting to transfer a quantum of energy across parallel universes." The demonstration proceeded smoothly at first. Zora watched in awe as the energy field fluctuated, seemingly reaching across the very fabric of reality. But then, something went wrong. A discordant screech filled the air as the energy field began to destabilize. Arcs of strange lightning crackled across the room, causing students to scatter in panic. "It's collapsing," Quixall shouted, his crystalline form vibrating with alarm. "The feedback loop is too strong." Without thinking, Zora leaped into action. Her mind raced, drawing on everything she learned about trans-dimensional physics. She spotted an auxiliary control panel and dashed towards it. "Zora, no," Kirkst called out. "You don't know what you're doing." But Zora was already typing furiously, her fingers flying over the alien interface. She input a series of commands, rerouting power and adjusting field harmonics in ways that defied conventional alien wisdom. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, the chaotic energy began to stabilize. The screeching subsided, replaced by a gentle hum. Within minutes, the crisis was over. As the dust settled, all eyes turned to Zora. Professor Quixall approached her, his crystalline form shimmering with a mix of confusion and admiration. "Ms. Chen," he said slowly, "what you just did, it shouldn't have been possible. How did you know to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow while simultaneously realigning the quantum matrices?" Zora blinked, surprised by her own actions. I'm not sure. It just felt right. I remembered something from my Earth studies about chaos theory and applied it to the trans-dimensional equations we've been learning. A murmur rippled through the class. Zara could hear whispers of impossible and cheating mixed with extraordinary and unprecedented. Professor Quicksall's form pulsed with excitement. This is remarkable. Your human intuition, combined with our advanced theories, it's opened up entirely new avenues of research. As the class dispersed, still buzzing with excitement, Zara found herself surrounded by a mix of awestruck and suspicious peers. That was amazing, burbled a gelatinous student, vibrating with enthusiasm. There's no way a human could have done that, hissed another, its scales darkening with suspicion. She must have had help. Kirkst muscled his way through the crowd, his scales a whirl of conflicting colors. Zara, I don't even know what that was, but I think you've just changed the game. As word of Zara's feat spread across the campus, the atmosphere began to shift. Some students and faculty members were fascinated, eager to learn more about this human approach to science. Others grew resentful, seeing Zara's success as a threat to the established order. That evening, as Zara entered the communal dining area, she noticed a distinct change. The usual background hum of conversation died down as she walked in, replaced by pointed whispers and stares. She grabbed her food, still sticking to synthesized versions of Earth cuisine, and looked for a place to sit. Most tables seemed to close ranks as she approached. Finally, she spotted Kirkst waving her over to a table in the corner. As she sat down, she noticed the table was occupied by a diverse group of aliens, most of whom she recognized from her various classes. Zara, Kirkst said, I'd like you to meet some friends. This is Lix. He gestured to a shimmering, translucent being, Zixlith, a swirling cloud of gas, condensed slightly in acknowledgement, and Vreen, a many-limbed, insectoid creature, clicked its mandibles in greeting. We've been talking, Lix said, her voice like wind chimes in a breeze, and we think what you did today was incredible. We want to learn more about how humans think, how you approach problems. Zara felt a wave of relief wash over her. I'd love that, she said, and I want to learn more about your perspectives too. I think if we combine our different ways of thinking, we could make some amazing breakthroughs. As they ate and talked, sharing ideas and theories, Zara felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced since arriving at the university. This, she realized, was why she had come here, not just to learn, but to forge connections across the vastness of space and difference. However, their animated discussion was interrupted by a commotion at the entrance to the dining hall. A group of students, led by a tall, silvery being Zara recognized as Azix, one of the top students in her year, was making their way towards her table. So, Azix said, his voice dripping with disdain, this is where the human and her sympathizers gather. How quaint. Kirkst's scales flushed a deep red as he stood up. Back off, Azix. You're just jealous that Zara solved a problem you couldn't. Azix's metallic skin rippled with anger. Jealous? Of a primitive ape who got lucky? Don't make me laugh. She's a threat to the integrity of this institution. Her presence here is a mistake, and I intend to prove it. Zara stood up slowly, meeting Azix's gaze. I earned my place here, just like everyone else. If you have a problem with that, maybe you're not as evolved as you think you are. A tense silence fell over the dining hall. For a moment, it seemed like the situation might escalate into something uglier, but then an authoritative voice cut through the tension. That's quite enough. Dean Xylos glided into view, his multiple eyes taking in the scene. This is a place of learning and collaboration, not petty rivalries. Azix, I suggest you and your friends return to your meals. Zara, a word in my office, please. As Zara followed the dean out of the dining hall, she could feel the weight of countless alien gazes on her back. She had come to the Galactic University hoping to bridge the gap between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Now, it seemed, she had become the catalyst for a conflict that threatened to divide the entire campus. Little did she know, this was just the beginning. The events set in motion by her actions would soon escalate beyond the confines of the university, drawing the attention of powers and entities far beyond anything Zora had ever imagined. The true test of humanity's place in the galaxy was about to begin, and Zara Chen was at the very heart of it all. The Cosmic Convergence Lab hummed with an energy that was palpable even to non-sentient beings. Zara Chen stood at the center of a holographic maelstrom, her fingers dancing through the air as she manipulated complex equations and multidimensional models. Around her, the greatest scientific minds of a dozen species watched in awe and growing excitement. "It's working," Professor Lyrax whispered, his tentacles quivering. "By the cosmic void, it's actually working." The team had been working for weeks to implement Zora's revolutionary theory, a unification of all known forces in the universe. Today was the day they would attempt to prove it experimentally. As the final calculations fell into place, a sudden alarm blared through the lab. Red lights flashed, and the holographic displays flickered ominously. "What's happening?" Zara shouted over the cacophony. Dr. Xylith's energy form pulsed with urgency. "The experiment is destabilizing. It's creating a cascade effect through the university's power grid." Panic erupted as the implications became clear. If unchecked, the reaction could potentially tear a hole in the fabric of space-time itself. In the chaos, Zara noticed a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. Vrax, the silent student who had confronted her earlier, was hunched over a control panel, his tentacles working furiously. "Vrax," Zara called out. "What are you doing?" The alien turned, his eyes glowing with a mix of fear and determination. "Saving us all from your human recklessness. I'm shutting it down before you destroy everything." But as Vrax's tentacles danced across the controls, the situation only worsened. Alarms intensified, and the very air seemed to crackle with energy. "No," Dr. Xylith cried. "He's exacerbating the instability." In that moment, Zara understood. The system was too complex, too delicate for a brute force shutdown. It needed a more nuanced approach, one that required an intuitive understanding of the forces at play. Without hesitation, Zara leaped into action. She pushed past Vrax, her hands flying over the controls. Drawing on everything she had learned, every insight she had gained, she began to work. "What are you doing?" Vrax hissed. "You'll kill us all." But Zara didn't respond. She was in a state of flow, her mind operating on a level she had never experienced before. She saw the patterns in the chaos, the underlying harmony in the discord. As the rest of the team watched in stunned silence, Zara began to bring the system back into balance. Slowly, agonizingly, the alarms began to quiet. The crackling energy in the air subsided. And then, with a final, delicate adjustment, everything stabilized. The holographic displays returned to normal, showing a model of perfect cosmic harmony. For a moment, no one moved. Then, as the reality of what had just happened sank in, the lab erupted in cheers and exclamations of disbelief. Professor Lyrax was the first to approach Zora. "In all my cycles, I have never seen anything like that," he said, his voice filled with awe. "You didn't just save us, child. You proved your theory in the most spectacular way possible." As the initial excitement died down, Dean Xylos called for order. "What we have witnessed here today goes beyond mere scientific breakthrough," the dean announced, his energy form pulsing with intensity. "It represents a fundamental shift in our understanding of the universe and our place in it." Zara, still catching her breath, felt the weight of every eye in the room upon her. She had come to the Galactic University to learn, to prove humanity's worth. She never imagined she would end up rewriting the laws of physics. In the days that followed, news of the cosmic convergence breakthrough spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Zara found herself at the center of a media storm, with scientific journals clamoring for interviews and alien news networks broadcasting her face to trillions of beings across countless worlds. But it wasn't just the scientific community that took notice. The Galactic Council, the highest governing body in known space, called an emergency session to discuss the implications of the discovery. Zara, along with Dean Xylos and the key members of the research team, was summoned to testify before the council. As she stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, Zara felt the full weight of her responsibility. "Esteemed members of the council," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "What we have discovered is not just a unification of forces, but a new understanding of the very fabric of our universe. It opens doors to technologies and capabilities we have only dreamed of: clean, limitless energy, faster than light travel without the need for static gates, even the possibility of traversing parallel dimensions." A murmur ran through the council chamber. The implications were staggering. An elderly Zorn Tech counselor leaned forward. "And you believe humanity is ready for such power? Your species is young, volatile. Some would say dangerous." Zara took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for since she first set foot on the Galactic University campus. "It's true that humanity is young compared to many of the species represented here," she acknowledged. "We have made mistakes. We have faced our own demons. But it is precisely because of our youth, our adaptability, that we were able to see connections that others missed." She gestured to her alien colleagues. "This discovery wasn't just my work. It was a collaboration, a synthesis of knowledge from across the galaxy. That's what humanity brings to the galactic community: a fresh perspective, the ability to think outside established norms, and the determination to push boundaries." As Zara continued, passionately arguing for humanity's place among the stars, she could see the mood in the chamber shifting. Skepticism gave way to curiosity, then to cautious optimism. Finally, after hours of testimony and deliberation, the Galactic Council reached a decision. Humanity would be granted full membership in the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Moreover, a new initiative would be launched: the Interstellar Cooperation for Cosmic Advancement, ICCA, with Zora Chen as its youngest ever director.